Welcome, everyone, as you are making on to the live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. It is your well woman practitioner, Lashana Moore of Holistic Speaking, the podcast, and you are joining us on our YouTube channel, which is Well Life TV. And listen, I am so excited about this particular episode. You all have heard me talking about it. I've spent some time on the podcast, Holistically Speaking, talking so much about these issues and these areas and these concerns that you all have that we're going to dive into this evening. So thank you for joining us. And for those of you who are catching the replay, thank you so much for joining us. So we are live both on our live stream YouTube channel, Well Life TV, as well as those of you who are going to be listening in on our audio. So greetings. Also, those of you who are watching, if you want to send your questions, I shared with you earlier, by all means, please do so. You can do that at this point so that I have them ahead of time. Allie, you ready? We're going to go ahead and start our audio podcast and let those guests come in.
Yeah, sure. I'm ready.
Okay. So if I can get you to just click your link, and we will be live on our audio as we are live on our video.
Okay.
And as all of you know, that Holistically Well is about two things. You know, the motto is be well and be whole. It's all about mind, body, soul, and spirit, making sure that you are thriving. I want you to know how to make decisions. I don't want you to be so bombarded with all of these rules and restrictions that, number one, you fail to enjoy life. Number two, you lack healthy relationship with food. And number three, that you confine yourself to so many rules that as you change and age and mature in life, it keeps you from really learning yourself. So Holistically Well is all about helping you learn how to be well, mind, body, soul, and spirit. And so that's what we're here to do, and to provide you with the tools that you need to be well and to be whole. How are we coming along on the audio?
Well, I should be logging in here shortly. I thought I was already set up. I apologize for the delay.
No worries at all. While you're doing that, and you all already know how these things go. There we are. We are connected.
Look, still in this virtual world.
It is a virtual world where all things can happen at any point. But we're doing well. We're flowing good. For those of you who are listening, thank you so much for joining Holistically Well through Holistically Speaking podcast. This is your host, practitioner Lashana Moore, and I have an exciting guest with you. And listen, for watchers and listeners, I am not going to belabor the time. You all know that we have a lot to get into. And so we want to utilize this time to do that. I want to introduce her to you. So if you will, if for those of you who are watching, if you will bring your attention to the screen and let me read to you her bio. For those of you who are listening, check this out. Allie Manning is a food scientist, food educator, author, and founder of Unami Food Consulting. With over 10 years in the food industry, she utilizes her passion for food, science, and community to help food entrepreneurs tackle the issues beyond the kitchen. Allie is the program consultant for Project Green.
Green Fork.
There it is. You know what? Why could I not read my own handwriting? Project Green Fork. Thank you, girl. And the creator of Food Science for Kids, a program that teaches grade school children food science. She recently published oh God, we're going to get into this, you all. She recently published her first children's book entitled, Can I Play With My Food? I love this. It's a book that explores food and science through the eyes of two sisters, Nima and Lexi. Allie is a graduate of an HBCU, Alabama A&M University, and a Huntsville, Alabama native. But after being a transplant for nearly 12 years, she truly considers Memphis, Tennessee, which is where she is, you all, her home. Aside from her day to day business, or businesses, should I say, she loves to skate. I love this with her Memphis Skate Hotties community. Explore the Memphis food scene, travel, and create content with her husband and personal photographer, Brian Manning. Learn more about her passion, and we're going to talk about this at the end of the podcast. Learn more about her passion for food, science, and all things creative at ally-manning.com. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our guest, food scientist Allie Manning. Cue the cheer.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I want to make sure you can hear me pretty well.
I
No
do. I
echo.
can hear you very well. We have gone back off of the audio. So if you are able to click back on there for me.
Okay.
While you're doing
Okay.
that, I want to share really quickly the purpose of this episode, everyone. We're talking about understanding food. And I titled it Food Behind the Scene, right? Because at this point, much of what you have learned or you understand about food, ingredients, and chemicals have come by way of social media, advertisers, advocates, something that you've read, maybe information that you've received or that you've pulled from the internet, or maybe even debates that you have listened to. And so there's a lot of confusion and frustration, understandably so, about these issues. So I'm going to pretty much interview style converse with Allie on your behalf, on our behalf, about some of these issues. She's going to share with us what a food scientist is. And I just have a quick disclaimer here that the views, the information, the shares that you hear are definitely those of Holistically Speaking and these two practitioners that you see and hear before you. I want you to listen with an intelligent ear and then take time for this information to digest, to sit with it, and to really think about, ponder what we are going to share. So I would like, and we'll work with the recording as is, Allie. I don't want you to have to
Oh,
focus
okay.
too much. But I want to ask you first of all, what is a food scientist?
Absolutely. So, a food scientist generally applies all of the scientific disciplines to food. So that could be chemistry, that could be biology, that could be microbiology. And so our roles are vast. We work in agriculture, we work in product development, we work in education, and in the lab. And that's where I began. So, as a food scientist, the opportunities are endless, honestly, because we've all got to eat. And we've all got to eat, and we've got to find new resources for food. So, yeah, that's about a lot of what we do.
And what I love about what you mentioned is that it crosses into so many areas, whether it's education, whether it's everyday living, in so many different vocations and concentrations. Food science is somewhere within our everyday experience. The one thing that we are not going to do is go a day without eating, consuming, digesting something. So you've kind of also shared within that definition really what a food scientist does. Uh,
Mhm.
I have been sharing with my audience that unless you are receiving proper information from people who are skilled and who work in these lanes of education, like food science, you really have to be careful about the information that you receive. So, would you give us just a little bit of what a food scientist may do on a day-to-day basis, or maybe just a general scope of a food scientist, what a food scientist does?
Yeah, absolutely. So, once again, we all work in so many different capacities. When I started out in my career, I worked in food manufacturing. So, I worked as a chemist in a lab, running, multiple tests for quality.
Right.
Um, Ultimately, That was not where I wanted to be forever. And so
Mhm.
moving into research and development allowed me to stretch my creative brain, my analytical brain. And a
Love.
lot of the work that I did was consumer driven. It was, what does the market ask for? What do we need? What do consumers need, and want? And so a lot of the things that we did were based on what the consumer wanted. For example, I worked in fats and oils.
Mhm.
And so anything that you fry with, anything that you bake with. And, we had some national clients like our McDonald's and our Chick-fil-A's and our Burger Kings and our Sonic,
Good.
and so, they have specific requests. Brands have specific requests. And many times we as food scientists either have to meet that demand or find innovative ways to match existing products or create new ones. So it's really interesting. There's never a dull moment. It's a lot of testing, a lot of routine testing, because as scientists, that's what we do 3 times, right? And so it's really interesting work.
So it's very interesting. I know that we all, oh, wait a minute. I hear a little bit of a feedback on my end. I know that we all have
Uh-oh.
experience in science, whether it's through our science classes. If you guys can think way back from elementary, your early science classes, and experiments and all of these things that we would do. I think that's one thing that made me smile so big about your book. Can I play with my food? I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but in mentioning that, can we talk about that for a moment? Your book and what inspired you to write this book. I heard the backstory behind the book and I absolutely love it. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The pandemic was pivotal for all of us, all
Yeah.
of us. Like I said, I worked in the industry a long time, but an opportunity came for me to open my consultancy, Umami Food Consulting. And during that time, earlier on in 2020, I know we were all talking about pivoting,
Yeah.
what to do next, right? Because the world was in shambles. And during that time, I was searching for my joy, getting back to all of the things that I love to do. And because I had just opened my business, there were the restaurant industry was struggling. Like, nobody was focused on growth. We were trying to maintain.
Yeah.
And so, interesting enough, there was a lot of growth that did transpire during that time. And so, getting back to finding my joy, I loved to draw as a child. I loved it. And I got back to drawing just like I got back to skating. And the book began to just flow from me. My sister, Alexis, is really the inspiration. Of course, my work as a food scientist and my program with Food Science for Kids is also an inspiration. But in the book, it's to honor Lexi. Alexis is my sister, and she has Downs. And in this book, Nima and Lexi explore where food comes from. They understand, food sources, and then they also get to enjoy a science experiment as well and realize that, what, cooking is food science, and so it's a great way to introduce this scientific discipline that I really love, to little ones, and to show them that I exist, that we exist.
Absolutely. I love the way you mentioned, in the book, kids of color. I love that this education is starting at a young age so that, as kids grow, they're learning healthy relationship with food. They're learning about science and being able to allow their curiosity to be encouraged. I really like that. A lot of times we like to kind of, stifle or we want to discipline the curious nature of a child, but the book really encourages that. I love that it was inspired by your sister, and that it really is even education for our adults as well. So you all, I'm going to be gifting a few of her books. And for those of you who are not gifted a book, I do want you to go onto her website and purchase these books, distribute them, and tell other parents about them, because we already know, we're getting ready to dive into it. We already know that there is so much confusion about what to eat, what not to eat.
Yeah.
Can I afford this to feed my family and can I not afford? Listen, it's going to take all of the hassle and the strain out of these ideologies. Um, Allie, what are your thoughts on the food industry right now and where we are?
Yeah, I think the food industry is in a really interesting space. There's a growing demand and need for consciousness, environmental consciousness, how much we're producing,
Yeah.
how much energy we're using to create these food products. Food waste. Food waste is a major issue right now within, our industry. Finding new innovative food solutions, because once again, there are billions of people on this planet. How do we feed them? And so, the food industry is in a weird, it's in an interesting space, because of that reason. And so, as a food scientist, we really focus on food shopping behaviors. I mean, as kind of a introductory, because many times people don't even realize how a grocery store is set up. It's set up for a particular reason,
Mhm.
and so we should be more mindful of how much we're shopping, how we're shopping, and how much we're spending on food, and then understanding what we currently already have in the fridge. How can we utilize what we currently have and use it up before buying more? We're in Our society is such an excess society.
Yes, absolutely.
Access and excess. And so I think if we would be more mindful about that, we can move towards a better food industry. But the food industry it's interesting. I work in food science, but there's so much happening in every area, to really consider and look more in depth at.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting, and you all bear with me because I don't know where that's coming from, but we'll navigate it and do the best that we can. I'm kind of taking turns muting my phone. I have my ear pods right here just in case I need to go into emergency mode. You all know how this tech stuff works. So we are working as best as we can here because I really want you to get the meat and the content of this information. Allie, you hear a lot of the talk. You are such a major influencer on social media. And by the way, side note, you all, you have to follow her social media page. She is a fashionista.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have
As
fun.
much as the work that she does, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So if you need like an what they call it, OOTD outfit of the day or inspired by ideas, I'm going to give you the information at the end, everybody. You have got to check out her social media page. So,
Have you seen me blush? You just made me blush.
girl, you are on it. I mean, color. I love it because you love color, contrast, complementing colors and patterns. I love everything about it.
Thank
And
you.
it
Thank
just
you.
it amplifies the work of art. Everything that you're doing is a work of art. I enjoy cooking because it's an art and a science to me, and I think that that reflects in the way that you dress, your fashion, your style. I think that it really it becomes you. It is you, and I really
And
love that.
absolutely, I have found me, and that's a beautiful thing. I alluded to my life changing, but it really did change, in 2020. And so there was a time where I felt completely lost and completely empty.
Yeah.
And so in my search to find myself and figure out what kind of meaningful work that I wanted to do moving forward outside of the industry, that's when getting back and finding my personal style became a thing. And drawing became a thing, writing and creating a book became a thing, and skating became a thing, because I got back to all the childlike fun that I
Yes.
love to do. And I think we sometimes get so caught up in the day to day that we forget the things that we used to love. So
Absolutely. And those outlets are important. We're going to get back on task, you all, but I have to share this. Speaking of skating, my husband tried skating one time at 6 years old. He failed and he never tried again. He is currently taking skating lessons, and
oh wow.
I am so proud of him. And y'all should see him. I mean, he's where he focuses so hard, but he's learning how to glide, and it's so great. Skating is a great way to enjoy moving the body and to make exercise fun play. Even as adults, a lot of those things that we used to do in our childhood that we just dropped because doing life and taking care of life adult responsibilities take over. So I love the skating group. All right, y'all, back on task. Back on task. All right. Allie, give me at least three ingredients that you feel are often misunderstood. We hear a lot about don't, no, don't use this, don't try that. We've heard a lot about so many of them. MSG is a big one, just loads of ingredients that have been placed on a negative list. So if you would share with us, what are three ingredients that are often misunderstood?
Yeah, I think of even some of the most simpler uh, ingredients like lactic acid or citric acid. People don't necessarily think about what the sources are for these ingredients, but they're all natural in fruits. They're used as preservatives,
Mhm.
natural preservatives. They're used to prevent browning
Yes.
that occurs due to oxidation or oxygen reacting with the food. You have some things that are like lecithins, even that are typically found in nature as well, that act as emulsifiers that pull the product together. Tocopherols. Sometimes if the word is a little bit unfamiliar, then that it creates fear, and we know as food scientists that happens. Some of the ingredients and chemicals that are extracted from natural products are not harmful to the body, but because they sound scary, we understand. And I, as a food scientist, I reiterate. Oh, I'm sorry, my dog. I reiterate everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. It doesn't matter if you're eating fruit or McDonald's chicken nuggets. That's my one thing. Everything in moderation. And so, ingredients can sound a little bit scary, but
Yeah.
um, do your own research. Do your own research. That's what I
Let's,
encourage folks to
let's do
do.
research. There we are again. That's why I wanted. I can't say I wanted to come from the horse's mouth. That's insulting. I wanted it to come directly from the voice of someone who has labored passionately, you have, but has
Mhm.
labored in this field to do the work, the investigation, and this is a way of life because it is a concentration and a focus. There's a lot of teaching, and I'll just remind us of a few. There's a lot of teaching. I've shared with my podcast audience that even I, after so many years, I've been in my field for about 13 years, but I remember going to school and a lot of the education that was shared about food and ingredients. After a while, there was just like a check in me, like, are you sure? Let me go back and kind of revisit this. And I took a chance to trust my gut over academics and revisit a lot of what we had been taught. And so now I'm spending the time of grace to reteach a lot of those things. For years I taught
Mhm.
the very same things, teachings like if it's too hard to pronounce, then it's automatically not healthy.
Uh-huh.
Less ingredients in foods, the better. All of these different things which have been passed down to us that aren't necessarily accurate, but also really creates a paralysis and a fear around choosing foods. And so I think I just got to the point, Allie, where I was
Mhm.
like, listen, if it's not coming from a credible voice who either this is their lane, this is what they do, people like yourself, professionals like yourself, or if it has not, or it has been shown to you in proven evidence and research, be careful. What would you say to that?
Oh, absolutely. 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 I think that we're in a society that wants things a certain type of way. But sometimes we may not understand all of the things that need to go into it so that your product looks exactly how you wanted it every time you go into the store. And so, because You want to have foods that are food safe, right? And maintain their shelf life over time. Some things must be added, not everything, and for me, I thoroughly enjoy Trader Joe's because I do. I know that they use a lot of natural ingredients, and many of their, even their frozen food section is incredible because
Mhm.
all of the things on the list, you can see them, you know exactly what they are,
Mhm.
right? But accessibility, let's keep it 100 here. Food insecurity is an issue.
Big issue. Yeah.
And when it comes to understanding, you know, um, food insecurity and how things are made and who can afford what and when and how, you have to almost, teeter on that line of, I've got to make the best decision for my family right now. I've got to do this because I've got to eat this because I love ramen noodles myself.
So
But I
glad.
do, but I do believe, once again, when you're looking at your serving sizes, when you're looking at your nutritional content, look at foods that are high in fiber. Look at foods that are, high in nutritional value. Look at your portion sizes. And I think that once folks understand the nutritional aspect of it, they'll understand more of why food science exists, why creators and innovators exist. And so I'll have clients, I've got a kind of a wide array of clients, but I'll have some folks reach out and say, man, I really want my cookies on the shelf in Whole Foods. And I'll say, well, what do you need? What do you need from me? How can we make this happen within your parameters? And I think sometimes folks don't realize how long it takes to get your product on the shelf. It's just not an overnight type of thing.
Right.
Sometimes it could take 6 to 8 months of just testing that product before it's even safe enough or holds up well enough to be on the shelf. So there's a lot that goes into it, and everything in moderation.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you say that then at the end of the day, a consumer is going into the grocery store to shop, needs to provide for their family, needs at this point, we have a lot of food insecurity here in my city as well. And have been working with some farmers and some local entrepreneurs about the food deserts that we have. My question that I often pose to individuals who really just streamline one particular type of teaching is that if we went into a famine today, would you shop at the grocery store the same? If you lost your income and you weren't able to buy said healthy foods, would you change the way that you shop?
Right,
And if
right,
it's good enough for famine times, then why not consider, okay, do I have, let's all think about it scientifically. Do I have accurate, gathered, tested, proven information versus just a meme that I see that's saying, eat this, don't eat that, choose,
right.
don't choose this.
Absolutely. I think that it's all circumstantial. It's all circumstantial. I would love to eat organic all the time. I would love to even eat at grab produce from the farmer's market every week. But sometimes all I can make it to is Aldi
Big
or,
ups for Aldi.
Kroger, and you
Big
just
ups
get
for Kroger.
right. And you just get the best produce, the best options for you and your household. I think that once bring in your healthy fruits and vegetables, your grains, if
Mhm.
you happen to eat protein, go with that. And then add in your little junk food, your favorite items, because I know I've got mine. And I think that when people are too extreme on one end or the other end, that creates confusion and misinformation. And so I think that I know that I'm more generalized because I teach students in, lower income areas, that
Right.
have never even heard of papaya or tried papaya. So for me, introducing ingredients and food items to them when I'm teaching is all that I'm caring about, because if they can remove that fago and try a coconut water, then I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But it's just different. It's just different for everyone.
Yeah, you hit on it when you said everything in moderation. My life has become even more enjoyable and free in being able to enjoy pretty much anything that I desire in moderation. An addendum to this, I guess, would be when I consider specialized clients that I work with who do need a certain kind of diet. So if that's you and you're listening and maybe you're suffering from something or you're going through really aggressive therapy of certain kind that will change, the pH of your gut, or it changes your hormones, and you have to abide by a stricter way of eating, then that I would say is a secondary or an additional conversation. What we really want to bring to light is for the general consumer,
Yeah.
how to really bring I'll call it the mental inflammation down when it comes to food, and remove the fear and the phobia. You are your first doctor, you're your first scientist, and
Right.
see how the body responds to these things. So you're telling me, and I'm asking these questions for our audience, that frozen food is okay.
I am. I
You
am. I
you
think
telling me?
frozen food, freezing food, first of all, is one of
Yes.
the oldest ways of preserving food and preserving the food quality.
Mhm.
So, yes,
Canned food or canned
canned
food is
food, preservation techniques, these are old ways of preserving food. And I think that when you, like you said, listening to your body, you are your first line of defense for what you're in control of what you're putting in your body if you're not a baby, right? So listening to your body, for me, for example, I realized that when I have fried food, my allergies just flare up. There comes a time where you just have to listen to how your body responds
okay.
to certain foods. And if that is the case, then absolutely seek a dietitian, a holistic health practitioner, a food scientist,
Yes.
read. And so I think that, yeah, I love frozen food. I mean, it's convenient, but once again, looking at the nutritional panel, seeing the value, is it high in sugar? Is it high in salt?
Mhm.
Maybe I shouldn't get that one. Maybe I'll get a different version, and just making a healthier choice.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where we being people who are in the food industry, dietitians, nutritionists, holistic health practitioners, anyone within this space would probably empower people a lot more by teaching nutritional value versus do's
Yeah.
and don'ts, giving people artillery that will empower them to be able to go and have the freedom to make these decisions. I'm going to be canning some tomatoes, canning an old
Nice.
preserving technique, and I will be adding citric acid
Uh-huh.
process
Absolutely.
for the sake of preserving those tomatoes. What would you like to say to people as we draw toward the latter part or toward the end of this conversation? What would you like to say to people who have been stricken with fear? If someone who were listening or watching this episode, who for years has been under the ideology that there's a list of foods that you should steer clear from, what would you say to those people?
I that's a tough one. I think that I'm really not here to persuade, honestly. I think that there comes a time when you just have to make the best choice for you. And if you are pigeonholed into believing that all things are bad and that everything on this list is bad, I'm going to stay away from it, or else, if the fear is the driving force of why you don't enjoy food, play with your food, experience different types of food, then how are you fully living? Like, how are you
Mm,
fully living? I think that's just simply what it is, because there's so much out here to explore and appreciate about food. There are even so many different types of natural, all natural fruits and vegetables and things that we could enjoy. But if
yeah,
it was on a list and I saw that and I was afraid without looking at it or doing my own research, then that's my fault. That's my
yeah.
fault. So taking ownership, and I my husband and I, we clown a little bit. I love my mom a lot to death. Hopefully she don't get me for this, but never mind, never mind. No, but just this thing of, well, um, breads that are too processed, right? White bread, white rice. I'm going to stay away from it. And maybe that was some old timey thinking, but experience it, and experience it in moderation and enjoy it for what it is.
Yes. I love that. I think that is the key. Opening yourselves back up to experiencing food, um, using things in moderation, and if there are some things that you're not clear on, to seek out those people who can accurately help. Food is community, but food is also very personal, and
Yeah,
because it is so personal, we can't always gravitate to just one general rule. It's your body, it's your metabolization. Only you know those specifics about your body, your health, your lifestyle. And I would really like to see us move more in that direction. And for the Holistically Well community, we'll be spending a lot of time doing that and educating you and teaching you and having professionals like Allie come on and talk with you, and to let you know, woo, 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 woo.
right. Right. I'm telling you. I mean, and even as a scientist and reading some of the articles, scientific articles, you when you get down into the nitty gritty of it all, there's a lot of misinformation that is being pushed out to the general public that may not understand it,
Yeah.
And there are some things that are factual,
Mhm.
right? There are some things that are factual about,
Yes.
colors, artificial colors and things, that have been ushered into our system that help maintain color quality. They all serve a purpose. These
Mhm.
things function in these products and ingredients. So, I can't. I would hate to be responsible, and I'm so sorry for anyone that feels any type of way. But but I think that it all. I just
It's a
it
more.
all. Yeah, it all boils down to what I said, moderation, because it's almost like you can't escape it all the time.
I love that. I love that. You can't escape it all the time. You all, I want you to connect with Allie. This is her website, allie-manning.com. And for that dope social media that I was telling you all about, this is her social media Instagram, Allie
Thank you.
Manning underscore how befitting carpe diem.
Thank you.
I love it so much. Allie, thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you all to make sure that you subscribe to the Well Life TV for information like this. I want you to be well. I want you to be whole. I want you to be able to function and thrive, and not stress about things that aren't necessary for you to stress over. And
Right.
then if you enjoy audio podcasts like I do, I love audio. I have listened to a few of yours. I am a podcast queen. I love information. You can join me on the audio podcast, Holistically Speaking. Allie, thank you again so very much for joining me and for taking time. I will be announcing you all on my website, holisticallywell.co, her books, and I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So I will make that announcement this week. In our closing, Allie, is there anything else that you'd like to say to the audience?
Yeah, thank you. I always say when I sign my books, continue to find joy and childlike fun.
Mm,
That's what sparked all of my creative interest again, and has allowed me to live a meaningful and very purposeful life in food science, food education, food consulting, community, and creativity. And so it's exciting to see how it continues to evolve. But no matter who I'm talking to, no matter what they ask me, I say, eat it in moderation. I mean, we've all got to go one day, but I'm
Right.
not going to let not all of my food choices deter me from the things that I enjoy. So moderation.
And you all, that is our takeaway. Everything in moderation. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you, Allie, for joining me. Everyone, as you enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, your morning, whatever time you're catching this, remember always be well and be whole. Bye-bye.